Hello, everybody. Welcome back to an episode of Red Dead Redemption Character Analysis. We're back here, and this is the going to be the second to last character that we do for Red Dead Redemption One. So yeah, wrapping up Red Dead Redemption One, at least for the first game, character analysis pretty quickly here. We're wrapping up pretty soon, I should say, and then we'll be moving on to Red Dead Two, and there's a lot of more characters I want to talk about there. So, but yeah, today we're going to be doing Marshall Johnson, and then we'll have one more character after that, and then that'll do it for Red Dead One. Yeah, so kind of look forward to that. We've got Red Dead 2 coming soon. But yeah, I already mentioned doing Marshall Johnson today, and he's a pretty interesting enough character. He helped out John a little bit. We're going to go into that. He is probably one of my favorite characters in the Red Dead, from Red Dead 1, and we don't see too much of him past the New Austin chapter, which is where he is kind of introduced. And this mission that you see here now is, where Marshall Johnson is introduced. It's the first mission. But he's probably one of my favorite characters in Red Dead 1 amongst others, and just because in some instances he's really funny, and also he's just so cool, just in general. And I figured I wanted to do a character analysis on him just because I like him so much. And yeah, just gonna get right into it. So obviously getting my info from the Red Dead Wiki, always great site. So Marshall Lee Johnson is a major character in Red Dead Redemption, and with the addition of the Liars and Cheats DLC pack, Marshall Johnson is also a multiplayer character model that may be selected in the Redemption section of the Outfitter, which is sometimes they'll show gameplay of that, not in this specific video case, just because I wanted to show the mission. Now the background, getting into his history a little bit, Lee Johnson was born in circa 1860. In 1897, Johnson became the district marshal of Armadillo, a settlement in the territory of New Austin. Due to a cholera epidemic afflicting Armadillo in 1907, Marshall Johnson was temporarily absent, along with most of the town's residents. Despite his work and contributions to keep Armadillo from becoming, quote, living hell, he receives little to no appreciation from the residents, even being rumored to be involved in acts such as corruption, among other things. Marshall also commands a couple of loyal deputies, Jonah and Eli, as well as an unnamed deputy featured in the assault on Fort Mercer, which I think you also see him in another mission in Red Dead. Or no, you see a couple like marshals or different stuff like that. And yeah, I think if you go to Armadillo in Red Dead 2 in the epilogue as John, I think you could see the sheriff leaving just because he's done with all the crime, and or the former sheriff of Armadillo, he just leaves just because the town in that specific time is it's like so crazy and has cholera, and there was a lot of the Del Lobo gang and messing with Armadillo, so the sheriff just left. And then Marshall Johnson took over. And then going into the events of the first Red Dead Redemption, Marston first comes to meet Marshall Johnson in Armadillo after he has arrived looking for help on where to find Bill Williamson. He tasks Marston with numerous missions throughout New Austin, for which in return he will help in the attempt to capture John's former brother-in-arms at Fort Mercer. Marshall Johnson's first mission with John involves them tracking down Walton Lowe, the leader of Walton's gang, which is the mission showed here in the gameplay. As I mentioned, it's the first mission where you meet Marshall Johnson. They track him down to Pleasant's house, and Walton is either killed by Marston or injured by him, where Johnson will bring him back to the Armadillo jail. Soon afterwards, John rides out with the Marshal to Pike's Basin to deal with the Baller Twins gang, who are cattle rustlers in the region, along with Jonah and Eli. Marston and Johnson manage to eliminate the cattle rustlers and retrieve the stolen cattle, where the ranchers are eternally grateful. And I think I actually showed that Justice and Pike's Basin mission, which is the mission I just mentioned. I think I probably showed some gameplay in like different videos, maybe not a character analysis strictly, but just kind of miscellaneous gameplay. I probably have that in one of the many videos I have here on the channel. So if you spot that out, good on you, because I know I have that in one of the videos. And just a little tidbit of info there. Now, a short while later, the Marshal hears about a horrific attack on Ridgewood Farm by Bill Williamson's gang. In the hope of finding Williamson, John rides with the Marshal and the two of his deputies on the way to Ridgewood Farm, and at the place itself they see dead bodies, many of whom are victims of sadism. They are attacked by gang members from the central house, leading to a gunfight. They save a number of the residents before going after other members of the gang. They find Williamson, who sends his men after them, and after another shootout, the Marshal and his accomplices manage to capture Norman Deek, Williamson's second in command, and bring him back to the Armadillo jail. Soon afterward, a member of the Williamson gang calls out to the Marshal from outside the office. He tells Johnson that his gang have kidnapped Bonnie McFarlane and will give her back in exchange for a Norman Deek, which is to take place in Tumbleweed, or that's where the deal is going to take place. Marshal John and two deputies, Jonah and Eli, ride out to Tumbleweed for the exchange. As Marshal Johnson expected, it turns out to be a trap, and Bonnie is hanged, although she is saved by John just in time. Meanwhile, Norman Deek is slain by his own gang, and after cleaning out the air from the gang, Marshal Johnson takes Bonnie back to Armadillo. And I probably talked about that mission where Bonnie McFarlane gets hanged in the Bonnie McFarlane character analysis. Probably goes without saying. Now, when Marston returns to Fort Mercer later on, the Marshal and his deputies, alongside Seth Briers and Nigel West Dickens, ready for the final fight against Bill Williamson, come along to help apprehend him, Williamson. And after storming the fort, they learn that Williamson left a few days prior to the attack, and he traveled south across the border and into Nuevo Periso, or Mexico. With the help of Javier Escuela, Johnson and Marston thank each other for their assistance in their own matters, part ways as Marston continues his pursuit of Williamson. That's kind of where he gets unofficially written off, Marshal Johnson, which is kind of a sad time. It's kind of like you don't really see him for the rest of the game. Now, towards the epilogue, it kind of goes over here, and that's actually kind of how a lot of the characters kind of get written off, kind of. So in 1914, an article in the Blackwater Ledger states that the legendary Marshal Lee Johnson stepped down as Marshal of Armadillo after 17 years of service. In addition, with crediting him with taking out the New Austin's most notorious outlaws such as Walton's gang and the Baller twins, a going-away party was held at the Armadillo Saloon, which resulted in 3 arrests made by him while additionally leaving the only participant left standing by the end of the night. When subsequently asked what his next move would be, he stated that he plans to move as far away from the town as possible. Now, he kind of do tell that he didn't want to. He even says in this mission here that he didn't really plan to become a marshal or a police officer. So he doesn't really like it. Like, he likes being a marshal, but I don't think he never really planned to, and I don't think he really likes it in that regard. But nonetheless, it was a pretty funny thing, and I mentioned that a lot of the characters kind of get written off, like if you read it in the epilogue for the newspaper when you're like Jack Marston. At the end of the game, there's like, you see we talked about Irish, he shot himself in a shack, or Seth found like gold in tall trees, or just different kind of things like that. And it's just kind of like they get unofficially written off in some of the newspapers, and that's probably not the case with all the characters, but it's just kind of like how the game kind of ends it off. But it's nice that he had a going away party, and that's kind of nice that he retired peacefully, and that's kind of the end of his character in Red Dead Redemption 1. Now, he is in Undead Nightmare, and I'm gonna go over that just because some of the characters are more interesting in Undead Nightmare, and obviously it's not canon. It always notes here that obviously it's not canon to the story, but it's interesting. I always go over the characters that are in Red Dead Redemption, Undead Nightmare, kind of like Nigel West Dickens or Seth Briers, kind of how I went over in the past there. And he's very interesting, Marshal Johnson is, in the Undead Nightmare DLC. So Marshal Johnson is in the sheriff's office in Armadillo. When John Marston enters the office, Johnson explains the situation of the town. He asks Marston to look for his deputies whom he sent out into the town. When Marston returns with the news of their demise, which Jonah and Eli died, you'll see they turned into zombies. Johnson accepts it, and he gives Jonah's sawed-off shotgun to Marston and is not seen again. And that's kind of pretty much a short kind of cameo that he made in the Undead Nightmare DLC. And I'm going to go over a little bit extra here. I don't necessarily always go over this. Just kind of extra things in the wiki. Kind of depends how I'm feeling. So, and his personality goes, Johnson is an old-fashioned lawman with a strict no-nonsense work ethic. He is characterized as tough, straight to the point, and is not afraid to get aggressive. All while remaining fair to the law, Johnson isn't afraid to get his hands dirty, often fighting alongside his men and Marston himself. And is clearly a skilled shootist. Johnson does his best to maintain law and order in the town of Armadillo and the county of Cholla Springs. While the world around them progresses into the modern age, Lee holds a grudge against government agents from the east, meddling in his affairs. Or meddling, I should say, sorry. Despite this, he shows respect for John and assists him in ridding New Austin of Bill and his gang. And it is mentioned how he doesn't really like, the government agents, or the government agents John was with, kind of sending telegrams and stuff like that. Just doesn't really like the new age, kind of an old-fashioned lawman, like it said. Despite his rough exterior and background, Lee himself displays a fairly polite, professional, and gentlemanly attitude towards those around him if not provoked. In a sharp contrast to his uneducated and inarticulate deputies, Johnson demonstrates a more refined vocabulary and a sharp, dry wit. Johnson is aware of the moral compromises he can and must make as a marshal, begrudgingly opting to leave one gang alone in order to solve one or more other pressing matters, And despite this, the Marshal keeps cool under the intense pressure and constant threats that blight Armadillo, doing what he can to keep order as efficiently as possible with a myriad of disturbances occur at once. Which is interestingly enough because you could see some of the stuff he does, like in his dialogue and kind of like how he handles the town and like keeps it under control, like keeping the one gang in the saloon rather than holding up wagon drivers. It's kind of mentioned in brief missions and dialogue and stuff like that, so it shows. And finally here, Lee Johnson bears the appearance of a middle-aged man with a beard and gray hair, wearing a well-kept martial uniform. His beard appears to have slightly yellow tinge. This may be due to streaks of blonde in his hair, or may be caused by consumption of alcohol or chewing tobacco, similar to Uncle. Johnson also carries a pair of nickel-plated Cattleman revolvers. It's he dual wields. You don't actually see him dual wield, but you'll see him. He kind of gives them out in the one cutscene when they enter the barn. But he never obviously uses it. Now, obviously in Red Dead Redemption 2, you could dual wield weapons. You see Dutch do it. But you don't really see Marshall Johnson use it, obviously, because it's not necessarily featured in the game. But you see it. You see there's dual Cattlemans, which is kind of cool. Kind of adds to his kind of personality there, and I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Marshall Johnson's character analysis. I really enjoy his company as a character and enjoy his company in a game. So that's really why I want to do the character analysis on him. He's not too big of a character, but he does make himself known in like mostly the New Austin chapter, obviously. And just like I said, he was one of my most favorite characters in the game. So I really like him, and that's pretty much it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. What do you think of Marshall Johnson? Do you like him, not like him, whatever it is? Let's discuss in the comments down below. Yeah, just leave a comment down below. Also, feedback always on the video, whether you like it or not. I like, good, bad feedback. I always say it, all the usual stuff. Comment down below all that. And with everything being said, got one more character to do in Red Dead Redemption 1, then we'll be moving on to Red Dead 2, which I think will be even more interesting because I feel like a lot of the more characters have they have more depth, and I think there's a lot more to talk about in terms of Red Dead 2 and just kind of the events that transpire. So yeah, stay tuned. We'll be doing Red Dead 2 character analysis very shortly. But yeah, with all that being said, make sure to subscribe for more content, like the video, all good stuff, Discord, Twitch, Instagram, links in the description, and I will see you guys in the next video.